or mocked or called names, which is fine too. Do that if you want to. We're not looking necessarily for everybody's approval. But don't be surprised if they don't vote for you or for your candidate, if they find stand for them. Thanks.
Thanks very much, Mark. Now, next person to speak is DJ Bonny. Please welcome DJ to the microphone.
Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to start by saying this is my first rodeo. I've never been involved in local government or politics before, but I looked around and I didn't see the diversity in council that I wanted to. I didn't see people that I could relate to in my own personal way. Yes, we agree on certain things, but I want to represent people who need to see themselves. For those of you who don't know me, I didn't grow up here. I moved to Port Macquarie about 2 years ago from Sydney. I was in Sydney for about 20 years after university. But I actually started out in very small towns in Australia, all across Australia. My mum was a minister and my dad was a grape grower. So mum loved the Lord and dad loved wine. I'm married, I'm a father of two. And these experiences, all of these experiences have shaped my values and made me think about things differently. As a first generation Australian, I'm European and I also have Maori heritage. I truly value diversity, the diversity that makes our community strong. I'm here tonight because I believe our community deserves bold and inclusive leadership that represents everyone. I think we all know about the voting block that has existed in council, and I think we all know where we are because of that. As a truly independent candidate, my promise is to engage with you, to listen to experts, and make decisions based on merit, free from preset agendas. When you vote in September, I urge you to take just a few seconds more to vote below the line and avoid repeating past mistakes that make meaningful change near impossible. Diversity of thought and background is vital. It's through embracing different perspectives that we find new solutions to old and persistent challenges. We can't expect to change the future by repeating the past or relying on the same leadership. In my professional life, I am dedicated to advocating for the vulnerable amongst us, especially through my work with an Indigenous children's charity. This experience fuels my commitment to making a difference in our community. I'm running for Port Macquarie Hastings Council to ensure that every voice is heard, especially those that have been overlooked. Our community deserves a council focused on better infrastructure, improved services, and a higher quality of life, and financial sustainability. That's why I'm here. If you like what I'm saying tonight, please vote for me. Otherwise, enjoy your evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DJ. Look, before we go on, I neglected earlier, my apologies. Speaking of apologies, we did receive earlier an apology for Team Roberts, so if you're wondering why they're not here, they have apologised. They couldn't make it for whatever reason, but just to save anybody asking the question, we have had that apology. Our next candidate to speak will be from the Greens. Please welcome.
And Labor.
Oh, well, yes, Labor is also an apology. Work commitments, sometimes prospective councillors have other commitments where they can't get to these things, and I think we all understand that. Okay, thank you for the reminder, Greg. Please welcome Lauren Edwards for the Greens. Thank you.
Thank you all very much. Thanks for coming out to listen to all of us and to weigh up your options for the upcoming election. I'm proud to announce my candidacy for Mayor, leading the Greens group into the upcoming council election with high hopes of a well-balanced council that represents members of the community. And I'm joined by Stuart Watson, as I mentioned earlier, Jane McIntyre and Les Mitchell. I've been a dedicated and passionate Port Macquarie Hastings councillor for the past 3 years, Stuart is a renewable energy consultant and a passionate advocate for increasing active transport. Jane is a retired school teacher, community worker, and publishes the local quarterly Inklings paper. Les has a background as an ecologist and has an extensive knowledge in the natural landscapes of our region. And I rely on Les a lot, actually. It's a wonderful source of knowledge. As the Greens mayoral candidate, I emphasise the need for a council that listens, acts and delivers for the whole community to ensure that all individuals, including people living with disabilities, those experiencing disadvantage and those experiencing homelessness, are heard. The Greens believe that responsible governance requires a commitment to our community and our environment, both the natural and the built environment. Anything less is irresponsible to current and future generations. While some may view council's role as limited to roads, rates, rubbish, the Greens assert that it should encompass much more, and does. Councils are responsible for community planning, and to make this planning become a reality through community development, where you have your say and your input onto council's approach to things, like affordable housing, environmental conservation, active transport, road maintenance, water and sewage, waste services, community facilities, and responding to climate change. We live in one of the most pristine environments on the New South Wales coast, and we believe we must preserve our natural resources and ensure our infrastructure supports sustainable growth and a quality of life for all residents. The Greens are committed to creating a council that truly represents all community members. We care about having a fair and balanced council for the Port Macquarie Hastings community, and we encourage our community to engage in this election process, as it's so vital for residents to be invested in who and what they are voting for, to ensure we do get that in diverse and inclusive council. And this approach that the Greens have to our work on council really does reflect the Community Strategic Plan. The Community Strategic Plan was adopted in the last term of council, and really everything we've worked towards in the last term and would do into the future term if elected really does align with your plan. So we're progressing your plan. Some of the things we'd like to do in the next term of council are to reinvigorate community engagement and partnerships. You might be aware that a lot of the committees were axed at the beginning of this term that we've just been through in 2022. It was one of the first acts of the new council, actually. So councils were very cut off from the community through those committees. Okay, I'll wrap it up there. We'll come back to that later, but thanks again for coming out.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Our final candidate to speak to us this evening is Nick Lipperback. So please welcome Nick to the microphone.
Thank you very much, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight as well. I know you probably have better things to do, but it's also very important that you get to know your candidates leading up to the election on September 14. So if you're not aware of my background or history, married, father of two, and paying off a mortgage like many people. Almost 30 years working in the media, including 18 of my 21 here in the Hastings region, firstly with 2MCFM, Triple M, and more recently with Radio 531. I've been chair of the Port Macquarie Hastings Sporting Fund Committee for the last 15 months, but I've been on that committee for about 12 years, which provides financial support to local junior athletes. Speaking of which, heavily involved in Hastings senior and junior cricket in various roles. Wasn't a great player, so I was an association president, club secretary, and junior rep 10 coach and manager. For quite a period of time there, coordinator of Give Me 5 for Kids, if you recall, the hospital fundraiser, which raises money to purchase paediatric equipment, which went to 4 local hospitals on the mid-north coast. I was on the Oxley Oval Clubhouse construction committee, had a few fun and games there with the council in terms of them moving the goalposts, so wanting more money, wanting to do other work, despite the plans already being approved. 2019 Hastings Sporting Volunteer of the Year, part of the team to win a couple of Greater Port Macquarie Business Awards, and over the past 2 decades have volunteered as MC for numerous charity, sporting and community events. Community is very important to me in terms of if you're not out there doing extras outside your work and other activities, then should you really be standing for council in that respect, because you are still serving the community down the track. My members, team, in particular I should say, John Bailey is a community volunteer with the Make a Difference. Ellen Crepaz is a community leader, and also Luke Garrell is a community sports and small business advocate. So we're heavily involved and a great association and link with all things community. In terms of council, well, in 2021, I stood knowing there was, I think, 6 vacancies at that time, because I saw what was happening. Not a lot has changed, unfortunately, over the past 2.5 years. It was divisive, it was distrustful, it was dysfunctional. We've tried our best, as in some of the councillors, to try and work together with others. It just wasn't going to work with the current environment. There are many issues that require attention in our LGA, including the lack of social and affordable housing for long-term locals, and also to help essential workers moving into the area. We need to work on that. Council providing greater incentives to increase the development of more 1 and 2 bedroom homes. We've got to make some significant progress this term to get on top of our backlog of infrastructure needs, the roads, the footpaths, the water, the sewage. We need to catch up with our current needs and also cater for our future requirements. And at the same time, we have to be financially responsible. Not going to be easy when you consider what we have to do and what money we're working with. Got to find that right balance, but with 9 councillors making a contribution in associate, working together as a team, no matter what ticket they come off. In association with the expert advice we get from staff and other professionals, and the community having their say, we can make those right choices. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nick. I think that's given everybody here a pretty good overview of what each group stands for, what each candidate stands for. So now we get an opportunity to move on to, I think, a lot of people's favourite part of the evening. I'm not sure about the candidates. I think personally I would love the questions, but I don't know. So our first question comes from Peter, but before we get that, I'll just explain. I've been given an order for the candidates to be able to answer in, simply so it's fair that we don't have the same candidate answering the question first or last each time. So if you see the microphone jumping around the table, that's why it is, because I've got an order that we're going to ask people to answer the question in. So if we can have the first question is from Peter.
Is Peter here? And I shall read it for him. Can everyone hear me okay? I'll come down the front. Can you please provide an example of how you would handle your consultation process to engage the community, council staff, and your fellow councillors? Nick, you're on, please.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make an effort to try and be succinct and straight to the point, because you are hearing 5 different answers for each question coming up, and there's a lot of questions. So without any further delay, in relation to this particular question, I think the process of engaging everyone involves initially making contact, not thinking you know best, but actually getting out there and talking to people, opening up a frank and fearless discussion, negotiating any issues or concerns that are raised, and then implementing any changes that are required, followed by then evaluating the entire process. Did it achieve the desired outcome? And if necessary, you need to start all over again. That is how I would handle the consultation process when it comes to community, council staff, and fellow councillors.
And Mike goes to DJ with you.
I think firstly it's worth pointing out that there are rules around councillor engagement with council staff. However, there can definitely be improvements made to the process around briefing of councillors generally. The use of technology and social media will be central to my efforts to engage the community, but I also acknowledge that not everyone can or wants to engage this way, and will look at other ways which work for them. Utilising council facilities like libraries to enhance the information that is provided to the community is also key. An informed community is a powerful community. What is more important, however, is the need to listen to community feedback and close the loop where decisions are made, particularly if the decision is difficult or unpopular. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Now, I was made aware that I hold the microphone for the whole of the last Meet the Candidates, so I'm going to share with Stuart tonight.
Okay, community consultative committees were axed with the last council, and our first move would be to reinstate the community consultative committee. So I was a long-term member of the Sustainability Working Group from 2015. There was cultural working groups, finance groups, things that have been axed by this council need to be reintroduced so that we can communicate and consult with our community. The Sustainability Working Group had some great progress. We got the long-term energy strategy, we got some solar on roofs of buildings, and the functions of that group were axed. There was a koala strategy that was planned through the Sustainability Working Group. Has anyone had to go with have your say with council? Okay, it's an onerous process. It needs to be improved. And recently we saw have your say responses ignored by the council. I would make a have your say easier, much easier for people to engage with council, and that the have your say results are respected and not ignored by council, and that the mayor's casting vote could be used much less. Thank you.
I think, ask yourself, why do you have elections for council? Council is really in an administrative and sort of implementation arm of the state government, and councils, as in staff of councils, I think, find elected councillors just a bit of an annoyance, a bit inconvenient. But why do you elect councillors? I think this is community consultation, because people who face election are the ones who really need to consult with the community and who really need to listen to what people want. And so I think council spends a lot of money on sort of community consultation that's often just a way of avoiding or going above the head of councillors to say, I've got an agenda, I've got a plan, but I need to find a few people that agree with me, so I'll just put it on a Facebook group over here that already agrees with me, or I'll ask an interest group that already agrees with me, and I'll say, oh, therefore the community agrees with me. Well, but never have to face election, right? Never actually face accountability for that. So I think community consultation comes through elections. Thanks.
And I'll be passing this question on to Lisa.
Thank you. To be clear, right at the beginning of the last council term, all structures that enabled consultation between councillors, community and staff were disbanded. That was by a block voting council, members of council, who, following on from Mark's comment, haven't attended any one of these Meet the Candidate sessions. As Team Shepherd, we commit ourselves to a complete revitalisation of the consultation process, in particular to establish community reference groups on particular issues, portfolios within council, better engagement between councillors and staff, and to rebuild trust, because people are sick of being consulted and not getting either results or even information back to them. That's our commitment to you. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes answers to our first question. Our next question is from Jill. Is Jill here, Greg?
I don't know. You here, Jill? I think this was a question that we didn't get to last week, so I'll ask it forward. Many claims have been made regarding the booty of $400 million in funds. Are these funds allocated or just spent? What is the truth regarding this money, and how do you see it being allocated when in office? Thank you, Mike.
So that money is allocated to projects, mostly sewer and water and things like that. It's a lot of it's raised through grants, and so it ought to be spent on those things that have been allocated for. A lot of those things should have been done by now and have just been delayed, and so I think that the council ought to make sure that those actually get done. The council's been earning interest on that money in the meantime, and so the longer they delay, the more they earn interest and get to use that interest for general revenue. And so once those things are done, that interest won't be there anymore. The council needs to cut costs. It can cut costs through head office staff that are there pushing woke agendas and things like that. When the council staff were asked, how can you cut costs? You know what they said? They said, you can cut out community grants, which is only $200,000 anyway, and you can charge kids to play sport. In other words, they chose things that would be toxic to anyone facing election, but no cost whatsoever to the staff themselves. I think that was a slap to councillors, but in doing so, it's a slap to the community, to the voters.
There we go. This $400 million is allocated. It's reserved funds that cannot be used for any other project other than its intended purpose. So the answer to this question is really easy. It's no, council does not have $400 million to spend. Thanks.
Thank you very much. I'll be really brief on this occasion in the spirit of teamwork and trust. The answer I heard from Rachel Shepherd last week at the Warhope meeting was spot on, referring to the majority of funds having already been allocated, so I will pass the microphone.
Thank you. Look, the funds aren't just already allocated, many of them are externally restricted. They haven't been gathered through grants whatsoever, and they have external restrictions, legal restrictions in how they can be spent. That's the vast majority, and this information is in the monthly report of council available publicly, so every month. So for those portions that aren't legally restricted, they are fully allocated. At last count, there was $418 million in reserves. 99.35% of those were allocated or externally restricted. And those funds are going to be almost completely exhausted within the next 3 years because of the delivery that's been in planning for 8-9 years for key water, key sewer infrastructure. That is much needed. Yes, much delayed, I agree. I'm not happy with it either. But the reality is that council has grown quickly and there's been a require for a significant step up in the capacity to deliver projects, significant projects. That's the growth phase that we've needed to go through. That's where things have been improved, and that's how we've come to have $418 million of reserves. They can't be spent on anything and will be spent on the needed areas over the next 3 years.
Thank you, and that's been answered so well that I won't repeat that, but I will say there was a good money reserves explainer that was put out in the last term of council. It should be updated, and I think it's something that probably the community does want to see again, so that it's put into easily accessible information there. Yes, $418 million, almost totally allocated to the major projects that we must deliver for this community, this growing community. And I would say that on Mark's comment about, yes, there is some interest that is earned on these funds, but that is also money that's directed back into the general fund to do the things we need to do and to actually make this transformation for council, to make the organisation more efficient. That has been a source of, potentially aiding that, until recently actually, potentially that was there to aid that process. So, the large bulk of that, yes, is absolutely allocated to major projects. There is no such thing as a cash splash that we can just do whatever we want with.
Thank you very much. It seems pretty clear where that money is by the sound of the answers from all of our candidates. Our next question is from Heather.
Do we have Heather? All right, I'll answer.
Everybody's shy tonight.
Thank you. I understand council is responsible for multiple community services. Do you have a particular issue you wish to focus on when in office? First answer is from
I'm
Mark.
going to pass on that one.
Sure. So, Laura?
Okay, thank you. I'll take that question. I'll be fairly brief because I ran on the platform for last term of acting on climate change, protecting biodiversity, active transport and housing, getting affordable housing on the agenda. And largely that's what I've been told I should keep focusing on. And I think that really that's largely what the community also would like. And since coming into council, I've realised I'm really interested in care and I'm passionate about all of what council does. So I'm right into dealing with roads. I'm really excited about, are we being innovative in the new projects, in the new infrastructure that we're delivering. So no, I don't have a pet project, or I couldn't pick one particular thing because I am actually genuinely interested now and passionate across the business.
And
pass on to Kinsley.
Yeah, I'll be fairly brief too. I don't think there's anybody here that doesn't have a pet project. The real bottom line is, we can't do anything unless we're in a financially good situation. And if anybody's read the financial, the council, it's not good. There's going to be some very hard decisions made in the future, but all the things we'd like to do, the libraries, the art walks, the community, housing, the whole bit, relies on having a solid financial structure to build on. Same with your houses, your homes, your budget. That's what we've got to work with too. There's many projects we're passionate about, but they all rely on us being able to deliver them. And the only way we do that is if we can pay for it. So our big focus is going to be getting the books right first.
Thank you. So volunteering is a community service that council can and does coordinate to work on various projects or sites. However, those numbers, as we know, have been on the decline since COVID. I would like to see more involvement in that field from the community and for council to also ensure that projects are being worked with community members. However, my focus, similar to Councillor Edwards, this term has been supporting the work of government and local organisations to assist those most vulnerable members of our community, the homeless, those affected by domestic violence, people suffering from poor mental health. If councillors in the next term could consider providing a building or some land, even more staff resources to ensure we are looking after everyone in the community. You're only as strong as your weakest link, and if we can't look after the grassroots, the base level, then everything else comes tumbling down. So we really need to make sure everyone in our LGA is being looked after. Thank you.
Thank you. The more I kind of research what I'm doing here as a candidate, I'm starting to understand that the next term for councillors isn't going to be a lot of fun. There's not very much in the way of funding. Projects have been cut previously. It would be great to bring in lots of fun projects and promise you lots of things, but I just don't think a lot of those are realistic. Having said that, there are some things that don't cost a lot of money, and that is boosting diversity and inclusion within the community, hearing people's voices, getting people to speak out, and making sure that those voices are registered and heard and recorded, and then something is done with it. In terms of infrastructure, there is one thing I would love to see, and that would be a footpath that doesn't just stop. Then you have to make it up the rest of the way, but let's see if we can get there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will move to question 4. Please, Bruce.
Now, I understand Bruce is in hospital tonight, so I'll read the question for him.
I hope he gets well soon.
Considering many candidates are so focused on fighting climate change through council policy, how do you justify the council being a branch of government that endorses weather modification, such as cloud seeding, etc.? There you go.
Comes around really quickly. Councils are distinct entities responsible for governing at the local level, making decisions that directly impact our communities. Regarding the question on climate change and weather modification, it's important to clarify that as far as I am aware, and from the research I've done, there are no cases of local councils, including ours, that have the authority or mandate to engage in weather modification activities like cloud seeding. Those decisions typically fall under the purview of state or federal agencies with specific scientific expertise and regulatory powers. I could be wrong, that's what I ascertained. As a candidate focused on inclusivity and sustainable government, my priority is to ensure that our council adopts policies that are evidence-based and focused on long-term sustainability. This means addressing climate change through practical measures like reducing emissions, promoting renewable energy sources, and enhancing our local environment. By doing so, we can contribute positively to the global challenge of climate change.
No, great answer, and I don't really have much more to add than that. I think I might actually probably need to follow up with Bruce, have a conversation, get more out what his what he's actually asking there. But although council does, own an airport, out here we don't send planes up to do anything, so.
Mark.
The people that do the cloud seeding are quite proud of it. You can watch them on the ABC and on documentaries and things like that. You can look them up. They'll show you their new toys. So it does happen. The question is, does it happen enough to tip the balance to cause a flood? It's a bit like election interference. There'll always be some cheating in any election, but is it enough to actually tip the result? Is the hard question to answer, isn't it? So I don't know the answers to those things, but I think that the people who are trying to play God, and they shouldn't. And I think I don't think that people should be trying to change the weather of the planet from local council. It's not the council's job to try to have a policy that they think is aimed at changing the temperature of the planet. The planet doesn't care what Port Macquarie Council does or doesn't do. But generally, when they try, what that means is restricting people's lives, saying you can't do this and you can't do that, you're not allowed to drive anymore, or we're going to make it too expensive, or you can't have a barbecue, or you can't have a gas stove or a fireplace. It's about bringing misery for the sake of an unachievable goal.
Our views on cloud seeding have been well covered by DJ, so thank you for that. But I do want to be clear, there's a couple of different approaches to climate change when it comes to local government. So one is looking at how you can think local, how you can think global and act local, and what are the little pieces that we can be doing towards the bigger picture. But the other side, and the one that I've become particularly interested in over the last 2 years, is how council makes sure that we can do our business in the face of climate change. So when we're talking about the core business of council, water security, safe roads, safe development planning and housing, roads that aren't going to go under and be inundated, and houses that aren't going to be inundated during floods, houses and infrastructure that aren't going to be damaged during bushfires. It's absolutely paramount for councils to be taking climate change realistically into account when we're doing our core business. So I urge you to think about it that way. The council needs to think about climate change when we do our core business so that you're safe and you have water, sewer and roads.
Thank you. So let me focus on the actual question, how do you justify the council being a branch of government that endorses weather modification? Well, I don't support weather modification, and I don't agree that local government endorses it or is involved in it in any way, shape or form. Doing a bit of research, I understand that Snowy Hydro has in fact run a trial of cloud seeding in the past, hoping to generate more snow for the ski fields, and approved by the New South Wales Environment Protection Authority. But that is the only time I've heard any kind of weather modification being conducted in this country. So I will dispute the question that council is involved with weather modification. Thank you.
Thanks very much for all that candidates there. Question 5, please, Greg, which was from Paul.
I think Paul's here. Are you here, Paul? No. Okay.
We'll find someone here eventually.
Okay, council's website states support for the smart city agenda. As this is an agenda of full-on surveillance and control, will you, if elected, totally take this off our council's plans for the future? First up is Lauren.
Thank you, Greg. I'm going to hand over to Stuart.
Thanks again. I'll try and be brief. It's not a smart cities policy, it's a smart communities roadmap. And I'd like to just alleviate your worries about smart cities. Smart cities are smart municipalities, are municipalities that use innovative technology to improve the quality of life of its residents, to enhance sustainability and streamline their services. It's not Big Brother, it's about citizen participation for the improvement of community. It's about active transport, it's about using smart lighting, it's about using smart metering to actually benefit our community. So I'd really like to alleviate your worries. It's not Big Brother, it's for our benefit. We have the Smart Community Roadmap. We've got a copy of it here, which is endorsed by council. It's quite a comprehensive document with some great ideas on sustainability and improvement of our community using technology. I commend the document to you, and it's here if anyone wants to come and look at it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. So council has proposed, as we just heard, the concept of a smarter community. That is, one, building a more diverse and resilient economy. That sounds pretty good. Two, enhancing its reputation as an attractive, vibrant and welcoming community. Can't disagree with that. Number three, maintaining its competitive edge needed to attract and support local businesses and industry. So when you hear that about the smarter community concept, it's all about improving our lives, and that sounds pretty smart to me. Very different to the question being asked relating to smart cities and concerns about surveillance and control. As far as I'm aware, Hastings Council is not pursuing this kind of city. As you can imagine, as you know, we can barely keep up with looking after and servicing our expanding towns as it is, let alone throwing money at trying to develop a smart city. Thank you.
This is something I've also done some research on. I appreciate the concern, but it's important to clarify what smart cities truly represent. The concept of smart city is often misunderstood. It's not about creating a city under constant surveillance or control. Instead, a smart city is focused on using technology to improve your quality of life. For residents, making our communities more efficient, sustainable, and responsive to the needs of all citizens. Smart cities can offer many benefits that go far beyond surveillance. For example, they can help reduce energy consumption through smart grids, improve public transport through real-time data, enhance waste management, and create safer and more connected communities through better urban planning. These technologies can make our council more efficient and more responsive, something that people often bring up as, a bugbear with council, ensuring that services are delivered where and when they are needed most. I also want to say that the Port Macquarie Hastings, as far as I know, doesn't have a smart cities plan. They have a smart community roadmap. Thank you.
Very good.
Yes, indeed. Smart cities, the term, for the record, is bandied about as full-on surveillance. That's what's in the question. Surveillance seems to imply facial recognition, but in fact, the surveillance is more often viruses in sewage, parking places available, repairs needed to mechanical facilities, lights being turned on at certain times. They're the core essence of smart cities. New South Wales has adopted a smart places, which is exactly what I just said there, taking the emphasis off surveillance of individuals. I was in council when we adopted the smart communities. It was a fight with the bureaucrats to put that word community in there, because we, councillors at that time, saw that technology can only take us part way. Our greatest resource are people, and we wanted to encourage education, information and connection amongst people in our plan. Thank you.
This agenda, where are we? This one? This agenda comes from the World Economic Forum and the UN. It's pushed down through federal and state governments. It's pushed onto local communities whether they like it or not. And so this needs to be fought at every level. Australia, at the federal level, needs to exit all binding global agreements. And at the state level, we need people in there who are going to fight against this as well. A smart city is not about like calling it a smart communities roadmap and filling it with buzzwords about sustainability and things like that is a smokescreen. A free electric bus that's going to be called active transport, yes, free in the sense that you'll be paying for it whether they let you on it or not, through your taxes, but then you can be sure that you need to have your carbon credit score within the allowable range and you need to have your vax passport up to date before they'll let you on it. It's about surveilling you in order to serve the climate cost. It's about making sure that they can reduce your carbon emissions by controlling your movements. That's what it's about. We need to fight it.
Thank you very much once again to all of our candidates. Now, the next question, even I know this will be one that will create a bit of interest. It's a question about Wrights Road and Lake Road traffic, and that's coming from John. Over to you, Greg.
And I'm guessing John's not here. Okay, so I'll be John. Wrights Road, Lake Road, traffic congestion has been discussed for over 7 years and viable ideas were put forward. Nothing has changed and it worsens by the day. Even though this is a state road, what would the candidates do to fix the problem? Rachel.
Thank you. First up, unfortunately, it looks like it's very unlikely that we're going to see action from state on this in the near future. So I know that's going to disappoint many of you, including me. That's one of the intersections, including Houston Mitchell and on ramp onto the donut, that I often have to do on a daily basis. So the reason that I give that very disappointing news, that we're unlikely to see anything in the next probably 5 or 6 years, is that I think we need to be focusing on interim solutions during the next term. So whether that's lights at the intersection of Lake Road and Oxley, whether it's looking at a third lane going through going past Wrights Road, and looking at those other interim solutions, and that's where we need to be focusing at this stage, and then also lobbying to our state and federal counterparts at this point. I'd also like to note that Peter Pinson and I didn't agree on many things, but I can tell you she lobbied as hard as she could on this, supported by extremely pointed and effective advocacy from Lauren Edwards and Lisa Pinson.
Thank you very much. Yes, in 2022, when we first came onto the council, we were told that it would be probably 3 to 5 years before a shovel would go into the ground there. And I fear that it's much further away than that now, actually, because the $5 million federal money that was there for the stage 2 designs was then taken away. So, yes, I have been looking at interim solutions, and I've actually got my little interim solution here that I put to various ministers, Transport for New South Wales, and I'm not finished with it. I'm still waiting to hear back from the new Minister for Housing to see if she can't help us get that reinstated by the Minister for Infrastructure. But yes, Lake Road and the Health Education Precinct are things that Council's been working on, because we don't own the state road. There's nothing we can actually do about that. We can advocate. However, Lake Road and an alternate access through the Health and Education Precinct is within our remit, is something that we can do, and it's now being progressed through the Integrated Transport Plan that we just adopted at the last council meeting. So watch this space. It's definitely on the agenda. It's top priority, and if elected, I'll be making sure I follow that, and I'm sure other councillors will keenly do so.
I actually have a personal connection, as I'm sure many of you do. Recently, I've been looking at schools for my daughter, and we chose not to go with the school that she was accepted to because it was around this area, and we were like, oh, that may not be great. So it's not just people that are sitting in their cars that are inconvenienced by this, it's businesses that are, losing out as well. It's schools that maybe people are going, oh, I don't want to deal with that every day. But I think John hit the nail on the head. This is a state issue and council can advocate, and they have done. But it does seem like it's a far way away, as everyone is about to tell you. Thank you.
What they're not telling you, is this one working? What they're not telling you is, if you really want this fixed, we need to get a better state member. That's really what it takes. When you have a left Liberal, you have the worst of all worlds. You have someone who will virtue signal about koalas and will push for left-wing social issues like full-term abortion and euthanasia, but will do nothing about the things that actually concern people, like that road. And Leslie Williams has just failed to push that as a priority to the state government. And Leslie Williams needs to go, get a proper Conservative or just get a real Labor person, but not a fake left Liberal person. They're the worst. Council can, like Lauren said, build a ring road alternative, and Council is getting on with fixing roads that it owns, like Ocean Drive. But this state road, we need a better state member. Thanks.
Nick.
Thank you very much. I'm one of many people who have to go through those 2 roundabouts every morning and every afternoon. I do try and actually leave work a bit earlier, leave work earlier as well to try and avoid the bulk of that traffic issue there. Transport for New South Wales, if you're not aware, has plans ready to go, as we've known for many years, but without funding to implement the changes, which includes additional lanes, we can't move forward. Late last year was announced funding from the Australian Labor government to plan the upgrade of the Oxley Highway at Wrights Road and Lake Road has been revoked after the review of the Infrastructure Investment Program. 17 major projects in New South Wales totaling $3.6 billion were revoked by the Australian Labor government. As a council, we have and will continue to advocate to demand this part of the highway receives the significant work it requires. It is a priority and it must be expedited. Thank you.
I lost where I was up to. We're up to our next question now, which we will do. Is Tom in the room, do you know?
Is Tom here? No. I made the mistake of telling people I'd ask the questions for them if they didn't want to, so it looks like that's what I'm going to be doing for a while.
Better not do them next time.
Okay, so I should be asking it. Given the focus of some on roads, rates and rubbish, what priority do candidates give to fire hazard reduction programs and flood mitigation works? Mark, you're first up.
Yes, so the council doesn't actually run the fire brigade, but the council does provide some funding to rural fire service, that sort of thing. Generally, like when people are wealthy, they can deal with anything that the climate throws at them. The Lismore floods were terrible 2 years ago. 5 people were killed tragically, and 31,000 people were displaced. In 2008, I worked in overseas aid, and there was Cyclone Nargis over in Burma. Over 150,000 people were killed. They stopped counting because it was too embarrassing to the communist dictatorship government. And over 1 million people displaced, and they had absolutely nothing. And floods and natural disasters, when you're poor, are absolutely devastating. When you're wealthy, you can more be equipped to deal with it, to prevent it, or to recover from it. The trouble with the climate cult is they want to make us all poor and less resilient to the climate.
Lauren.
Thank you. So, look, I guess it depends on the land tenure, but I've certainly, since getting onto council in 2022, kicked off and at every opportunity suggested that flood studies, updating our flood studies should be a priority. The climate modelling for the fires that we experienced should be a priority, that we should set that as a base layer. Council does things like asset protection zones, which I think have recently changed names. We had a sim table which went out to all the towns and villages in our community to educate people about the behaviour of fire, and that was something that was produced through the Mid-North Coast Joint Organisation the council is a part of, so that came and visited our towns and villages. That's also now moving into flood modelling, so it can be used in the same way, educative approach for the community. So look, it really depends on the land tenure, but you know, council is working in this space, and the Mid-North Coast Joint Organisation certainly has a big focus on resilience, and there is a staff member, a paid staff member there to do more in that space for us.
Nick.
Thank you very much. So if you're not aware, fire or fuel reduction burns are primarily a state government responsibility. Landowners also need to be responsible. Council does have a public land procedure that will request for asset protection works via hazard reduction burns are to be forwarded to council in writing or over the phone or via the report a hazard page on council's website. Of course, we saw what happened in 2019, so yes, it is a priority already. The state government, through the Department of Climate Change, Energy, the Environment and Water, in conjunction with the SES, play a massive role in managing flood risk statewide before, during and after floods. And as we've seen in the past, council also plays a significant role in terms of providing experienced staff and local area knowledge. Council, yes, has a duty of care to manage land subject to flooding. Drainage systems must work, and development of the land should be minimal, as you would expect in flood zones. So yes, to the question about hazard reduction burns and flood mitigation works, yes, it is a council priority, but working in conjunction with others. Thank you.
DJ, please.
Okay. So Rachel,
Okay, I don't think anybody's going to say no, we don't want less in this area, especially seeing what we've been through. I guess one of the things to remember, the people that say council's not important, the only level of government that's in the room before, during and after a flood is local council. Okay? It's in your face stuff. And one of the things which getting off, this is answering, yes, we all want to improve what's out there. It's not that easy, especially with hazard reductions. I'm probably more of the cold face of this than anybody in this room, as far as floods and fires and all the rest of it. I'm there. And what really disappointed me in this last term of council was the council getting rid of those community consultation groups that were there. One of them was the flood group. Now, I was on that for 13 years. Now, it's industry and community and council representatives from all over getting together to discuss this same issue. So yeah, we need to get that back on the agenda so this can be taken care of.
Thank you very much to all our candidates. We're just going to try and encourage you to move things along because we're concerned about getting through these 14 questions. If you are able to answer yes or no or pass or say I agree with the person next door or something like that, please do that, just so that we can try and make sure we get through the whole 14 questions. And our next question is question from Judy, please.
we have Judy. I'll do Judy. Should we go back to councillors deciding on small but disputed development applications rather than relying on a small panel of unelected members consisting mostly of current or former council staff? Rachel.
Under current state government regulations, and I would like to say that it's party apolitical. It happens from any party in state government. They do not want councils making development decisions, development assessment decisions. And that was partly because of the complexity of the laws that are associated and also the legal cases that followed on from councils making decisions. So unfortunately, the answer needs to be no at this moment in time. We can't go down that path. But there is more information to come on how we might do it better in the next question.
Lauren.
Thank you. I guess I could move along by agreeing with that. However, I do think that it's really important that communities do have more say on local government issues, including planning, instruments, development applications, rezonings, even the sale of public land. So I think we need a little bit more.
Mark.
Absolutely not. What do you mean small but disputed? Like say you want to build a shed, but your neighbour doesn't like it. Well, tough luck to the neighbour. Unless it interferes with their property rights, it's none of their business. Now what do you want? A council of 9 people then all discussing and say, oh, I quite like that neighbour. And someone else saying, no, that neighbour once cut me off in traffic. And someone saying, I think the shed should be red, not green. And so on. Why do you want a bunch of busybodies on council arguing about whether you get to build a shed? And then if they say no, then the landowner just takes them to court, more money, more expense, and gets it through anyway. So definitely not.
TJ.
Agree with Lauren and Lisa.
I'll be brief. To be honest, I think the system in place at the moment is working, but I will need to see some more info. So no specific opinion on this one at the moment. Thank you.
Gee, how good are the candidates? One word and they've all sped it up. Wow. Maybe it was the right question. Question 9 is from Michael.
Is Michael here? No. I'll be fine.
Someone is going to be.
my multiple personalities. Okay, do candidates support reclassifying our current building density zones of general residential to low, medium or high density zones, as most other councils have done, to stop unit blocks being built in existing areas of mostly houses? Lauren?
Well, look, that would depend very much on the exact area. I'd have to be looking at the local environment plan, but at the moment, I would say that we actually have ample medium density zoning already that we could be getting underway, delivering more density. Yeah, that's all I have to say at the moment. I have to look exactly at the LEP and work out where it was and how suitable it was, and also get the community feedback.
DJ?
I'm going to pass this on.
Yep.
Sorry, they were all the three ones that I was going to pass on were all together.
That's fine. Mark?
I'll pass on this one.
Yep. Rachel?
I would like to say first off that part of the reason why the questioners might not be here is because these questions were gathered a lot at the last meeting. Yeah. So this one regarding zones, now, a couple of councils ago, we pushed really hard to have the notion of character included, and existing character included as one of the classifications for assessment. That unfortunately we found out involved having to go to each and every landowner and find out whether or not their future resale value might be affected. It doesn't work going backwards, but what it can do is we can do this kind of thing going forwards. And we've got, in this coming council term, one of the really most important tasks will be to do land use planning and infrastructure planning for the coming 10, 15 years. That's the time in this next council term when we can start to get this kind of procedure implemented.
Thank you. I won't even stand. It's a fairly short answer. So to reclassify a density zone from general to high, as per the question, that's 4 levels up. Seems a little bit extreme to say the least. I can understand moving from general residential to low density. That seems more reasonable, while we're trying to cater for more homes. I do support a small step up in the density zone classification. I think that is unfortunately part of progress. But if any other council area is going from general to high in one swift decision-making process in council, I'll be very surprised, and maybe that's suitable for something in the city areas, but certainly not here.
Thank you very much for candidate on that question. This question was asked at the first meeting that I went to, and creates a fair bit of discussion. So I think, we don't even have a name beside it.
We're asking this question at every forum because it's a referendum question.
I'll let Greg go forth and ask the question.
The referendum question we have to answer at the election asks if we agree with reducing the number of councillors from 9 down to 7. What is your position, DJ?
I do not agree with reducing the number of councillors. Reducing the number of councillors reduces the group representation and would likely lead to more issues, like what has been seen in council meetings the past year or two. It would also increase the workload of the remaining councillors, making it more challenging for them to engage with community effectively and respond to their concerns, and could lead to a council that is less accessible, less accountable, and more centralised in its decision-making, which ultimately risks leaving many community members without a strong voice in council. The referendum is wasted money, and in my opinion, should not have proceeded at all. Thanks.
I think we're going to hand this one to Stuart.
Yeah, I'd just like to back up what DJ said. The referendum was brought on by a block vote, by 4 versus 4 with the mayor's casting vote, and it's a waste of $70,000. I wouldn't like to do a straw poll. Who is going to vote no? Can we have hands up and down? Can I? For no. Yeah. I think we've just wasted $70,000. Yeah, it was an example. We went from 9 councillors to 8 councillors, which gave us block voting. These councillors in this room work bloody hard for you guys for $30,000 or $27,000 a year, And if we can have 5 more of them, I think it'd be a great move. We definitely don't need
Yeah, I'll be voting no as well. I think if every single person in the community voted on everything, that would be too cumbersome. And I think just, if there was just one dictator for the whole community, that would also be no good. So the idea of representation is that we're somewhere in between those two extremes, and we're at about the right level, but I don't think it should be less. Makes it harder for anyone with an actually diverse view. A lot of people talk about diversity. Often what they mean is slight differences in demographic, but 100% uniformity of opinion. And you get someone like me who actually does come with a diverse opinion, and more spots means it's actually achievable to get a seat on council when you are in a minority.
Great, Phil.
Yeah, look, agree with everything's been said. One thing I get thrown out when people say this, they say, oh, small government, great. You got to remember, you're not getting smaller government. You're getting less representation in the same size government, okay? I think it's more important that you get value out of your elected representatives. Because block voting, boy, I want that gig. Drop there, put my hand up, go home, thank you very much. That's not being paid for what you do, okay? I want individuals there that can have a say and put their opinions and their expertise to the table. That's getting value out of your councillors. This block voting stuff, and that's what this is designed for. This is purely a power grab. It's so that they can have a mandate and they can do whatever they want. An example is this referendum. No one asked for it. They put their hand up and said, we want it, and they get it because they have the numbers. And that's not a way to run council.
Thank you. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello, 1, 2. Quite simply, just cross the no box. I've spoken about this extensively at previous meetings that we've held. It's on my online social media with all the reasons as to why. As far as I'm aware, only 6 of the 28 candidates vying for this election want to see that change. Those 6 aren't here. Those 6 have not appeared in any of our meetings over the past couple of weeks. In a democracy, I love the word that Mark used. I think the word dictator was thrown about. This is a democracy, and those numbers, 6 of 28 wanting it, those numbers indicate there isn't an appetite for it. So it's a definite no. When you get to that ballot box, when you get the referendum paper, cross no. Thank you.
It's interesting. Question 11's sort of around the same subject, but it'll be interesting to hear the answers we get. I have no name for this one, Greg, so...
We've got several questions from the Bonny Hills Progress Association, who I know work very hard in this area. And some of the members are here. Sorry, I forgot your name. Paul. Paul's going to ask our first question.
Well, I've set a precedent. Someone's actually asking the question now. I've got a few of our Progress Association members here tonight, and we've got 4 questions which you kindly agreed to pose to the group. The first one is an interesting one because in observing the media reports in the last 2 weeks, several candidates have said previous forums have voiced their desire for a council that's going to be composed of a wide array of councillors to ensure that all parts of our community are represented. And obviously we've got groups under a name, be it Libertarian, Labor, you expect that group to vote as a group. But we did notice that 13 independents have grouped together into 3 groups. And I have to pose the question, and I'm sorry to those councillors who had to go through what you have for the last 18 months, but why are we being asked to vote above the line for your group, and will we have a similar problems to what we've had in the past by doing so?
DJ.
Thanks, Paul. I think I need to write you a check for this for this question. As you can see, I'm the only standalone independent candidate, and we'll leave this question for those who have chosen to group themselves. I will say though, one reason I can imagine people group themselves is because it's bloody hard. Doing this on your own, this is my first time. I didn't have a lot of experience apart from like the school government. It's difficult. There's a lot of things that you need to learn, and you need to learn them quickly because you only find out if you get approved as a candidate, and then you've got to get all the stuff printed and authorized and printed. It's a lot of work. So I can imagine having other people to work with would make it a lot easier. Having said that though, I encourage everyone to vote below the line. If you want all parts of your community represented, as your question suggests, this is the only way to do it. You can create an all-star council basically by voting below the line. You can choose the people you want to represent you. Thank you.
Thank you. Good teamwork at the microphone. Very good. I appreciate that. Ultimately, folks, you've got the power to vote above or below the line. We can tell you whatever we feel it would benefit us, but you've got the power. Not everyone is going to vote, as you can imagine, for the same group ticket or even the same individual candidate. So even if I say vote group D, above the line and nothing else, I don't think 100% of the people will do that. It would be awesome, but then we'll only have 4 councillors elected and we'll have to start the whole process again. By all means, take your time, have a look at the candidates, vote above the line, vote below the line, whatever the case may be. It's entirely up to you in that respect. One of the points that has been asked, how many boxes do we number below the line? 4 is the minimum. If you do less than 4, your vote will be chucked out. And maximum, you can fill them all. Below the line, you can fill up every single box if you want to. Above the line, again, you can do more than just one. It's entirely up to you. So the choice is there for you. Thank you.
I'll be brief on this one because clearly we are in the Greens party, so not an independent group ticket. However, I will say that the Greens certainly will be producing a how to vote, as we always do, which suggests a range of the group tickets to vote for based on performance in council, policies that are as closely aligned as possible. Obviously ours are better, but second, third. So yeah, we would be suggesting you never waste your preferences, and I was going to be quick, so I'll stop.
I think it's worse than you think. From my perspective, it seems like there are 16 people trying to run for the Greens.
So just, I guess a little bit of election 101. I don't think any ticket here expects to get 4 candidates on. And so as you're approaching a campaign, you need to be really, really clear. What are your core principles? What are your core values that 4 people or more agree on? And that's what our the only all-independent ticket running for council, who have never been and are not now members of a political party. That's what we've done. We've identified regionally relevant principles and commitments that we expect each individual candidate to apply to each issue as it comes if they're elected as a councillor. There will be nothing of what we saw in the last council, where there are social media videos posted by people who vote differently to their leader, who shall not be named. So it's really important you understand it's a pragmatic decision to run as a group if you are interested in getting your principles and values represented in council, because unfortunately an election analysis shows us that it doesn't matter how good a candidate has been, that unfortunately it's very unlikely to get elected as an individual at the moment. That being said, I will be voting below the line.
Thank you very much to all our candidates. The next question was at the first meeting to, I think, about wards, or someone else has just got a similar question. I'll hand over to Greg for the next question, which does involve wards.
Hey Paul, are you going to answer this for us? I'm happy to do that one again, Greg. Give you a break, save your throat. Okay, we talked about the number of councillors, and I think a lot of people would agree 9 is the minimum, as most councils in New South Wales have. Certainly they have less than that. So there's a huge workload even for those 9. I've heard a few people talk about the possibility of creating wards, with each councillor maybe being more specialised in understanding of the intricacies of an area, geographical area. I lived in Parramatta in New South Wales before coming here, and we had wards in that one. I believe about 40% of councils do have them. So I'm interested to know what your thoughts are on the possibility and whether any of you intend to push that particular strategy going forward.
Thank you, Paul, much appreciated. So the ward system, if we were to try and implement it at a local level, that would be another referendum, and that would be then, if agreed, if it passed, it would then come into effect 4 years later. So I have mentioned de facto ward system a few times. Ultimately, but it will be up to the elected councillors if they want to go down that line. I can run up the flagpole, I can put in a notice of motion, we can discuss it, debate it, and decide whether or not they see the benefit of what I'm suggesting. The benefit would be of individual councillors being able to focus on one part of the LGA and have a strong knowledge of that area, rather than have 9 councillors with slightly limited knowledge on all the issues and concerns of every town and individual community. So again, I see the benefit of a de facto ward system, should those elected councillors also agree to participate in that. Thank you.
I'm glad that we've had this question twice in the campaign so far, because I started with the view that wards are a great idea, but almost 100% unlikely to happen. And I've actually changed my view to think, well, actually, there is a de facto way to achieve that to some extent, so long as we have committed councillors willing to put the work in and commitment to community engagement as well. But I've also formed the view that a formal ward system wouldn't be a good idea on the basis of comments that Mark had made at the previous forum. And so a little bit unpredictable, so I don't know if you can make those comments again. But to paraphrase, that if you have only, say, 3 people from Moorhope, 3 people from Laurelton, 3 people from Port Macquarie, that you end up with clones of the same 3 people. That the people tend to the same sort of people if you've only got a very limited number of people to choose from. And I don't think that that would be valuable. The point is that we have a diverse set of people who are both geographically set out within the region, but are also spread out within the region, who might share common values and beliefs as well. And so I do think a de facto system is a good idea, and have been convinced that the formal system wouldn't be.
I'll give an example of that. Yes, so if you think going from 9 to 7 is a dumb idea, going from 9 to 3 is an even worse idea. It just means that your councillors are picked for you at the major party pre-selections. I'll give you an example. In the Hills district in Sydney, there's basically 2 Liberal and 1 Labor per ward. In Blacktown LGA, there's basically 2 Labor and 1 Liberal per ward. When Alex Hawke's sort of influence was rising in the Liberal Party, he picked all of the Hills councillors. And then as Alex Hawke's influence has waned, all of the councillors, including the mayor, were replaced in the Liberal Party pre-selection, not on election day. So that's the trouble with having wards, is it's all determined for you by the major parties, and it's even more difficult for someone that's independent or has any different view to get on. So it's not like the myth that someone just suddenly represents Bonny Hills or Warhope or whatever. Our party does support demergers though, as a way of having totally separate but smaller councils.
Thank you. I'm going to hand over to Stuart, but just to first say the de facto ward system, I'm interested, but it would rely on those councillors being committed to bringing that information back and sharing it with the whole councillor body.
Yeah, I'll just back Lauren up on the de facto ward system. It's a great idea that we could put it amongst agreeing councillors. If we did have wards, most wards would be about 10,000 people, and they'd have to have a minimum of 2 representatives. So I'd like to just contradict Mark on that. If we went to wards with 80,000 people, we'd have 2 representatives for 8 wards, which would be 16 councillors. Okay? So, yeah.
2 would be worse than 3.
Yes. Okay, 16 councillors rather than 9. So, yeah, we the Greens strongly support grassroots representation and a de facto ward system would work well in the Hastings LGA. Thank you.
I'll be really quick. I think everything's been said already. But I believe wards have merit where they're appropriate, but I would prefer to examine properly how this would work for our council before committing to a decision either way. I'd also hope or assume that this would be a question put to residents. As Nick pointed out, that would be another referendum rather than one made by council. Thanks.
I'm going to give the next question to our Vice President, Roger, who's specialised on this, been involved in this side of communication between council and the community.
Thanks, Paul. The lived experience of the Bonny Hills Progress Association in relation to communicating with council has been excellent in relation to council laws, both has been in the past quite good with staff, but has graduated to abysmal. Part of the solution that council tried to put in place was what they called the CCAT system, which was supposed to be a community council partnership. And has ended up being a gatekeeper role for council. That gate, generally speaking, is closed. And so it's become very, very difficult to have dialogue now when you're dealing with an issue, which might be a reserve issue or whatever. It's going to take a serious, what I call an organisational culture change. Question to you is, how would you propose that actually happen? Because it is broken now.
You're right.
Absolutely, it's broken. There was a dreadful cultural change in the last council term. It's taken its toll on both the health of councillors and staff. It's really quite a sad and desperate situation in there. It will take a reinvigoration through councillors who are committed to consultation. And part of the reason that it fell down so badly was because there was a rule instigated whereby councillors could not attend a community meeting if staff were present, if the director wasn't present. Now, these are people who are on $200,000 to $300,000 a year. The notion that a councillor cannot meet with a community group without the director present is a nonsense. That would be the first thing we would change, but also a multiple of other things I mentioned before. Thank you.
I'll try to be quick on this, because I was going to say a similar thing to Lisa there. It was terrible to find that the CCATs was something that we had to beg to be invited to, and then it was only if the director was going to be in attendance. But in the last term of council, I did instigate a review of the community engagement systems, structures, and a review of those committees that were asked, and the report that we got back, what can I say, it was woeful. It didn't do what was asked. So we'll have to revisit it next term.
DJ. I was not aware of the CCATs, but I'm very aware that council needs to do much better at communicating with residents. I think there's an opportunity to use technology and other council facilities to reach out to the rural and smaller towns, but most importantly, ensuring the loop is always closed. That is the key part of customer service, that there is a clear path from receiving your information to finalisation and resolution, and that we always get back to people if they have raised concerns or issues, because I think far too many people have been left wondering and, without any answers.
Thank you, Roger, for the question. There were, as I understand, 12 CCATs established, comprising of local representatives from towns and villages right throughout the region, to make a plan for each area. I'm aware that not all questions and actions have been followed through on. So a possible solution, you could almost combine CCATs with individual councillors involved in a de facto ward system. And perhaps there's a solution right there to provide better communication and better results on a regular basis. One thing that I personally wouldn't tolerate is accepting your vote to get me on as a councillor and then as a councillor not coming back to talk to the community that supported you. CCATs are very important. I know it's broken down over the past term, over the past 2.5 years. But again, a new term of councillors, fresh blood, new ideas, more support for what's happening in our region. That can all be turned around following the election. Thank you.
I think generally council staff don't actually want to know what you think. They want to know, they want to just make sure that they can achieve their agenda and not get too much backlash and keep the community and councillors either in the dark if that's necessary or give them some smokescreen or some bluff if that'll help. They're agenda driven. They're not actually looking for ideas. They think that they know best. I think you need a strong council team to say, sorry, but we're the ones facing election. We're the ones who have to be in touch with what the community wants, and we're taking charge here. Thanks.
Thanks very much to all our candidates once again. Next question, Greg, please.
You don't have a mic. This is from Paul.
This is our last question from the Progress Association, and one I think that affects everybody in this room. So I'm really wanting to put this to you all. But before I do, I just want to say a special thank you to the Hastings Residents Association for organising tonight to allow us to come and hear all the candidates. I really appreciate you doing this for us. Most of the people up on the stage would be aware that the August meeting, Council just approved one of its most important action plans that I've seen in my 4.5 years of living at Bonny Hills. It's called the Local Housing Delivery Plan. And what it means is, in the next 20 years, there's an approval and a target now for 15,000 additional dwellings to be built in the Port Macquarie local government area, of which 1,759 are going to be here at Bonny Hills and Lake Caddo. Now that obviously has a huge impact on what we have come to these areas to enjoy. So I'm putting the question to all the candidates, simply, will you commit to and work with us, the community, to ensure that our surrounding natural environment is not destroyed? Our infrastructure is going to be ready for all these additional people, and our village atmosphere that we've come here to love can be maintained in some way.
One, two. Thank you again, Paul, for the question. That is a tough one, to say the least. We know that balance is incredibly important when it comes to housing development and also retaining our natural amenities. It is a jigsaw puzzle. No matter what you do, not everyone will be happy. I understand that. Ultimately, we have to do what's best for our region. We need housing. We also need what's around us, why we moved to the area, why we enjoy it so much. About living in this region, we've got the native animals, we've got the natural environment. I love waking up in the morning and seeing a very large kangaroo eating my lawn and leaving deposits and then hopping off. In fact, there's a koala up in a tree, so I'm in a safe area of Port Macquarie where the houses are built on top of each other. There's not much gap between the gutters of the homes, but then there's a big area that has been not allowed to be touched, state government purchased. So I'm living in a very natural environment, but also in suburbia, so to speak. So ultimately, we will work with staff to find that balance. I know it's tough, and as years go on and more people move to the area, they discover how beautiful it is, they will want to live here. So it's going to be tough work. But it's a balance that we need to find and work together with. Thank you.
I think this is basically the discussion in every single council in Australia. Everybody wants to maintain the way life used to be, and I think state governments basically try every way possible to hamstring councils so that they can't block any development, and so that they are forced to just absorb more housing into their areas. So I think you have to look forward and not just ask for councillors to give you comforting and soothing words, because councillors probably can't give you what you're looking for. They probably can't achieve that perpetual village atmosphere in growth areas. That's just reality. Thanks.
That's a very good answer. Councillors can't do that. Candidates can't do that. And in fact, depending on what the council looks like, you know, we've got very real questions about how these sorts of things get delivered into the future. Yeah. So a local housing delivery plan based on a local strategic planning statement and other key documents that would allow, I think, for exactly the sort of development that the community would be satisfied with based on the community plan that already exists, based on what we hear from the Progress Association and others regularly as well. However, the next piece of work is going to be implementing that and retaining fidelity to the principles and values laid out there, and doing so in the face of what will be strong opposition from the parties who have financial interests in how it rolls out. You know, whether it's developers, whether it's construction, whatever it is, the reality is that their job is to make money from certain things, and so you need a council body who is not affected by those interests and are interested in retaining fidelity to those principles and values that are laid out in the current strategic work and the strategic work we're about to embark on with land use planning. Very important.
I will hand this over to Stuart, but I just wanted to say that, like the community, when the agenda comes out, that's the only time that councillors have a chance to review that as well. That's taken in your feedback and that's delivered to us to make a decision on. So we cram all of that in, the whole agenda. I'm going to pass you over to Stuart to finish this answer.
Yeah, I'd like to thank Les for working on the research on this. The local housing strategy and its impact on Bonny Hills. The Greens are concerned about the mapping of an investigation area south of Bonny View Drive and outside the existing boundary of the urban growth management strategy, and that we are aware of the koala habitat value of this area and its importance as a natural habitat corridor link from the coast to the Queens Lake State Conservation Area and Nature Reserve. We will be advocating for the mapping and the rezoning to C2, the highest level of conservation of much of that land before further investigation of its potential for urban development. This is a general principle that should be applied to all housing investigation areas. We're able to find new housing opportunities while at the same time retaining as much of the natural vegetation as possible. And I'd like to quickly say that Kate Fairman's been working on banning zombie applications up and down the coast. I'd like you to look at that. That's really important for coastal communities, that these zombie DAs that were approved decades ago, the Greens don't take money like other parties from property developers.
Okay, there you go. I'm just going to say that I agree with the vision of the Greens, but I also agree with what Mark said in that, you know, it is a difficult task, and Rachel is also correct in saying that, you know, we probably can't do that, but what we can do is use our voices and advocate and stay in touch with community groups and understand what the needs are around preserving our natural environment. But yes, I do support preserving our natural environment and keeping this place the place that we all moved here for. I brought my family here, chose, you know, we had a list and I was like, no, that's the place I want to go. So this is where I want to raise my children because of how it would sound, not because of how it will look when it's commercialised and potentially ruined. Thank you.
I'm sure the candidates will be thrilled to know we have some extra questions. I'm going to hand over to Greg. What we do, you're very welcome if you don't want to answer them or if you want to pass, fine. But Greg, over to you.
Well, I've been grading the candidates, and I'm going to ask three of you who had full answers to more questions than the other two. That would be Nick, Rachel, and Lauren, to be very brief on these two questions, if you would, please. DJ and Mark, you can speak for your whole minute if you want to. The first question, and I believe Bill is here in the audience. Is Bill here? Bill, do you want me to ask the question for you? I'll ask the question for Bill. Are you aware of the 200 million being offered by government to eradicate black spots on our country roads, specifically the dangerous Christmas Bell planes and the Pacific Highway, Houston Mitchell Drive? What is your position on safety on country roads? Mark.
I'll just basically ask, I want roads to be more safe. Lauren?
Just briefly, yes, aware of the funding, absolutely support improving road safety, very aware of the Houston Mitchell Drive concerns, not so aware of the Christmas Bell planes, so I'll bring myself up to speed.
Right.
A similar position to Lauren, and I'll follow up with that last point, no Christmas ball planes.
DJ.
I concur with my learned friends. I will do some research into this as well. Thank you.
Nick.
I think the bottom line is that we're all committed to road safety, so thank you very much for bringing this to our attention. Thank you.
Okay, question 16, also from Bill, I believe. I'll ask it for you. From Keith. Sorry, it's Keith here. Oh, Keith, I'm sorry. Please speak.
Hi there. My question, I think I'll withdraw it because it seems to be covered by all of the candidates. It was about being able to vote for councillors, candidates, I should say, independently of any block or term.
Brilliant. Thank you, Keith.
That's all the questions? Well, there you go.
Well done.
Okay, now what we're going to move on to now, ladies and gentlemen, is final summations from each of our groups or individuals. And looks like I've got an order that I've just been given when I look up here. So please welcome Nick Lepovac with his summation. His summation is running as a maximum of 2 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. I was going to ask you for the time. Appreciate that. So once again, I am mayoral candidate Nick Lepovac. If I do say so myself, I have a tremendous work ethic. I do call a spade, and I think I have served my apprenticeship over the past 2.5 years. The team itself, we would like to see council being forward-thinking and financially responsible, as I mentioned before, while making progress on that backlog of infrastructure, housing and transport requirements. And I do like to see, and I've been pushing for this, as have other councillors over this term, better communication, transparency, accountability and integrity. That might seem or sound like buzzwords, but it's exactly what you want and it's what you deserve as well. There is no room for personal agendas, preconceived ideas or party politics. So I've stood up and spoken on many issues, but in particular highlighting our need for a new housing strategy, which has become available, and doing what we can for the most vulnerable members, increasing the number of local businesses successfully vying for council tenders is something I've pushed for since the start of the term. Supporting tourism, which in turn supports the economy, improving sporting facilities, better roads, as we know, safer beaches, and the list goes on. So when elected as your mayor, the community will also benefit from my positive relationship with state and federal members, and also with our local chambers in the Camden, Hayden, Wauchope, and also Port Macquarie regions. That particular last sentence is something that has suffered dramatically under the current term of councillors, and particularly our mayor, who has decided that she doesn't need to have a chat with local chambers, and is also having a dispute with one of the state members. But that story, I can assist in getting all that stuff back on track and working for your benefit to make sure that we get every possible grant coming towards us because councils are highly reliant on state and federal government grants to get projects done. We appreciate the rates that are paid, that is fantastic, but we need a lot of state and federal government support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'm asking for your vote for mayor because I've been a committed councillor over the past almost 3 years, and our Greens group is passionate to work for you. Having said that, by all means, vote below the line. Select the individuals that you've heard from and keep interrogating them right until the time you make your decision. I'll quickly go through my work on council. I've helped to ensure that the priority is delivering 2 lanes each way for the Lake Road corridor, advocated for the establishment of park to ride hubs and more shared paths, instigated the identification of suitable sites for renewable energy projects, highlighted new grant funding opportunities for renewable energy projects, secured investigations for wildlife land bridge over the Pacific Highway at Houston Mutual Drive there, which the state government's agreed to do, instigated delivery of education campaigns on land clearing and wildlife health, advocated for immediate actions to improve housing choice and affordability, been an intermediary in engagement for youth and homelessness and Aboriginal needs in the housing strategy and the housing roundtables that we had, instigated a review of the standard of returns of interest of designated persons, councillors, secured investigation of a vacant council building for the homelessness services to use. We'll get a report back next term. Councillors, whoever they are, will. Called for equity in ferry service funding and fares. Instigated a review of those community engagement systems and structures and those committees that were axed. And promoted a 3-lane solution to address the Oxley Highway congestion as an interim upgrade solution. Instigated the drafting of a budget development policy for the new council to get us back on track. Thank you. In the next term of council, the Greens will aim to reinvigorate community engagement and partnerships, continue to pursue action to reduce traffic congestion such as get new roads happening and carpool to school programs, work to reinstate the climate emergency declaration and increase resilience planning, increase solar installation uptake, battery opportunities for our community, secure and increase in housing choice and affordability for all household budgets, continue to push for identifying and protecting high environmental value land and wild corridors, secure and trial 1 or more free electric buses for our area, and there's more. There's much, much more.
That's a very tough act to follow. I've done none of that. But I hope what you've heard from me tonight is that I'm running for council to ensure that every voice is represented. That our community deserves a council that's focused on things like better infrastructure, improved services, higher quality of life, and I think all of you feel the same way. I'm running on platforms of diversity and inclusion initiatives. It's about cultivating a community where every person, regardless of their background, can thrive. I'm aiming to bridge gaps and build understanding, ensuring that all voices are heard and valued. Sustainable and financial responsible community development. My commitment is to a strategy of growth that supports both our environment and our economy without risking our council's future. By focusing on sustainable development and financial scarcity, we can ensure the area remains a thriving community for all, now and into the future. And finally, creating more livable communities. Our communities must cater to everyone, families, retirees and singles, reflecting our cultural diversity. We need practical enhancements, safer, more walkable streets, multi-purpose parks, accessible playgrounds, and improved dedicated dog areas, and footpaths. I really want those. In closing, I think you can all tell I'm not a career politician or an expert on local government, but I am a proven and committed advocate. And also, if I don't know, I'm going to go out there and find out. I'm going to talk to experts, I'm going to talk to the community. I will find out. I am like a dog with a bone. I look forward to working with council's experts and engaging more with you all from all of the different communities in our area. Thank you for tonight.
Thanks. I'm going to use part of my 2 minutes to answer a question that was put forward tonight that wasn't actually asked for some reason. It was emailed but not put. Please provide a comment on how you felt Port Macquarie Hastings Council handled the BACS mandates. I think they did dismally. And I think that was an absolute failure of leadership. Now, I speak as someone who's been in many leadership positions. I've been like an entrepreneur and a CEO of various different companies. I've taught economics at university level for 15 years. I've worked in overseas aid and development. in 2020 and that COVID era, I was also president of a state sporting organisation. And so every leader at that time was under pressure to acquiesce, to go along with the propaganda, to go along with the censorship, and to interfere with people's lives, to lock them down, to ban them from playing sport, and to pressure them to get that deadly jab. And so every leader, including Port Macquarie Hastings Council, was under that pressure. I'm proud of my own record of not caving in, of making sure we still ran our state titles in those years of lockdown, and made sure that nobody was forced or even pressured to get that jab in order to compete in our sport. In Port Macquarie Hastings Council, people lost their jobs. The council needs to apologise to those people. The council needs to apologise to the people who did get the jab under heavy pressure of losing their job and then regretted it. Now, some people say, well, that was the CEO, not us councillors. When the CEO is making the worst decision of their life, that is when leaders need to act. That's when you need to call the CEO in and hold their contract over the flame and say, you find a way to get through this without damaging these people's livelihoods and firing them unfairly. But the council failed to do that and needs to be held to account. Even the lockdowns, closing off parks and things like that, going along with that, when there were 0 cases in Port Macquarie, the council needs to apologise to the community for not pushing back against that. Thanks.
These forums are really important, I think, for us to understand the diversity of views in our community as well, because this is all our community, right? And I think we do need to get better at having some difficult conversations. So there are some in our community who feel that it's more important who we do not elect at this coming election. And I personally think that's quite important as well, but we don't want to get stuck on it too far. I do want to convey that the 6 candidates who haven't been to any of these forums so far are being pitched as a business ticket, but none of them are in the health sector, none of them are in the education sector, none of them are in the disability or aged care sector, right? They're huge parts of our economy. So I just want you to keep that in mind, that as 3 incumbents on a 6-person ticket, that it is actually highly likely they're going to get at least a couple of councillors on. You need to be aware of who you're voting for, and you need to help your friends be aware as well. So the opportunity then, and the opportunity that Team Shepherd provides with Lisa, Kingsley and Linda from all across our region, Warhope, Bonny Hills, and I grew up out of Pappenborough, Kingsley at North Shore, Linda in Port Macquarie. We've got a bit of a geographic spread going on. We're connected deeply with different parts of this community through the land as well as the people itself. And when we look forward, the land use planning, it sounds boring, governance sounds boring, but these are the things that are going to shape our community into the future. How decisions are being made in a way that people are aware of. It's transparent. You know that these decisions have been made in a way that are consistent with your values, that have been done with views from across the whole councillor body, and not some people rejected simply because their views are very different, but rather concessions made in an attempt to build consensus and try and have the needs, not just the views, the needs of our whole community represented in decision making. That's what Team Shepherd stands for. We're standing for concrete action on accountability, teamwork, and keeping a clear focus for the future readiness of Port Macquarie Hastings.
Thank you very much to all our councillors, our candidates. Today I was talking to some people and saying to them that I was coming here tonight as a moderator. And one of the comments I made is, it's been fantastic to hear the questions and to hear the candidates and to get a good understanding of the representation available to the local community, even though, as I probably mentioned earlier, I'm actually enrolled to vote in Tamworth and I'll need to vote at Tamworth Council. What I encourage you to do, I think there's one more session at Laurelton on Thursday night. Tell your friends, tell your family. If they're not sure what they want to do, get them to come along to the next session, because I think if I was living in this area, having heard these people, I'd be pretty confident about where each one of these people would take me if I gave them my vote. Being really careful here not to go off the rails and point the finger or the bone at any particular person. But the more people that come along, I think that the more that we as a community get to make our choice correctly for what we really desire. And I say that we as a community because I know you don't want those extra thousands of houses, but I am going to be one of them very soon. So having filled some time in there, which unnecessarily filled in, it's just an aside, encourage people to come along to the next one. I'd like you all to thank these candidates. They have given up their time. It is a shame that not everybody could make it tonight. Maybe we'll get a full house on Thursday, you never know. But thank you by acclamation. I thank you all for coming in, and look, thank Greg and the Hastings Residents Association again too, because without them this wouldn't have happened, and they've done a fantastic job. You cannot believe how much work they must do behind the scenes to put all this together. So thanks for Rob. Yeah. Just quickly, Greg, did you have anything else you wanted to say? All good. Thank you. Thank you, Rob. No worries.